Hey there, Seahawks fans. We have the latest news and rumors around your favorite team for you guys on today's show. Now, we will begin with one Leonard Fournette, who was pegged as a potential addition by Seattle by SB Nation, which on one hand, there is some rationale behind it. However, as strange as this is, SB Nation put in their article, it's kind of lazy to the view of, Fournette to Seattle. That makes perfect sense, right? On the one hand, this is a team that wants to run the football, even though we here at Seattle Seahawks today are a firm believer in the Let Russ Cook campaign. But they want to run the football, and Fournette is a good volume player. 265 carries, over 1,000 yards last year, was also involved in the passing game, 76 catches, not a typo. It was just all checkdowns, so not exactly very efficient ones on that one. So for Seattle, if you want to add extra depth at the running back position, sure, of course, that could make some sense. The problem is figuring out the role. You have Chris Carson, you have Carlos Hyde. If you want to dump high, go get Fournette. Okay, that could make some sense. But even with Penny banged up, which is why they added Marshawn Lynch last year, they were so desperate for options, you still have your fourth-round pick in DJ Dallas, who has a bottom end of the depth chart back, makes more sense for Fournette because there's special teams value and a little bit more in the pass-catching area. And look, I know that there were injury issues last year. If they crop back up, then yes, of course, Fournette makes sense. You want to cut Hyde? It makes sense. But I think just adding him to what exists already on this roster isn't the most rational or most sensible move. I don't think they should be in the top 5 like SB Nation had them. If they want to go get him, okay, I can understand that. I don't think, though, that adding Fournette is a must-make decision by Seattle because if we're being honest here, there is a reason nobody made any type of addition or offered any type of trade to go pick up Fournette. So what do you think Seattle should do? I'm somewhat okay with it, but more or less against it. But get your votes in. If you want them to add him, type yes. If you don't want Seattle to pick up Fournette, type in N for no. This will be the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get the ad break here on YouTube, scroll on down and get your votes in. Let's go now to Jadeveon Clowney, who the snip-snap of the future with him in Seattle is back once again. Yahoo Sports reports that the Seahawks and Titans are the two teams right now in the mix, so to speak, to add Clowney, with one big but that we've heard for months quite frankly. The price is too much for Clowney. He's still asking for $15 million or more after having turned down that offer, was more than $15 million, from the Cleveland Browns. That's not a great path for a guy coming off a 3-sack season. If the cost drops, and that is a big if right now, I agree with that report. I think that the Seahawks would have some interest in adding Clowney. And the main reason there is don't have a whole lot available in terms of the defensive line and edge rushers because L.J. Collier, Rasheem Green, okay, you're probably fine there. Bruce Irvin will play a linebacker defensive end hybrid role, no huge shock there. Benson Mayowa's looked good in camp, but if we're being honest, the Seahawks were expecting Darrell Taylor to have a big impact. He's probably not going to open up the season. The other issue here for Clowney, and this kind of relates to Seattle, Tennessee has interest too. And they asked Clowney to take a visit and physical, and he just hasn't done so at this point, which is weird and very unusual for a player who, is trying to find gainful employment. The other negative working against Clowney, but kind of in Seattle's favor, is the Yannick Ngakoue trade. Clowney's been asking for $15 million. Yannick took a pay cut down to $12 million to help facilitate that trade to Minnesota. If you're Seattle and you're already not going to offer anything more than that, you're not giving him more than $12 million. There's simply no reason for Seattle to do that. So if you can get Clowney at 12, maybe. Let's say hypothetically that it's a 1-year, $12 million deal for Seattle and for Clowney. Would you do this? Type S for sign or type P for pass. Speaking of passing kind of sort of here, how about Marquise Blair and the Seattle Seahawks and what his role is going to be? Pete Carroll continues to offer praise for the safety turned nickelback. Look, it's been going well so far for Blair. This is the first time he's played nickel corner, and Pete Carroll is impressed. Here's what he had to say. He's really probably been the brightest surprise of camp. What we didn't know is how he would cover, being that he's more of a safety. But he's got quick feet, great feel for routes, and he covers people as tight as anybody we have. That is a good sign for Seattle. That is a good sign for Marquise Blair. Nothing official yet with week 1 still a couple of days away, but I feel very confident Marquise Blair, once Seattle uses that nickel package, it might not come out in first play of the game, but I think you're going to see Marquise Blair be the nickel corner for Seattle. I think you're going to keep Quentin Dunbar on the outside. Ugo Amadi didn't earn that role this camp. So I think for Seattle, Blair is going to handle that role, and I like it because in theory, Blair was one of your 5 best defensive backs. Finding a way to get him out on the field is something that smart coaching staffs do. You don't want to put out your 6th or 7th best DB just because he's the nickel guy. If Blair is able to hold up in that role, that is a very good sign for an organization that barely used nickel coverages relative to the rest of the NFL last season. So what is your confidence level right now in Marquise Blair? Rate this for me on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you are panicking, you want somebody else. 10 being you think he is the missing piece to the next Legion of Boom. Let's head now to just some general Seahawks talk. ESPN put out their top 100 players list. And they had 4 Seahawks crack the list. Now, some notable snubs here: Dwayne Brown, DK Metcalf, Chris Carson, Quandre Diggs. I do think ESPN got the top 4 correct for Seattle. Russell Wilson came in at number 4, Jamal Adams at number 19, Bobby Wagner at number 27, and then Tyler Lockett checked in at number 83. And you could argue you bump some of those guys up a little bit higher if you want to. Maybe Wilson should have been number 3 or heck, even number 2. Maybe Adams should be top 15. I think Wagner might be closer to 20th overall like he was last year on ESPN's list. But I think ESPN got it right for the most part, with, of course, some always, players you can haggle over their exact spot. Now, there are some Seahawks masks still available for you guys at chatsports.com/Seahawks mask. You can stay safe and rep your favorite team in the process. They have team ones and player ones like Russell Wilson, who we just mentioned. Head over to chatsports.com/Seahawks mask. I will put that link in the comments and in the description. So all you guys have to do is click shop and figure out which Seahawks mask you want to buy today. Let's talk kickers now. Not something I normally like to do, but I thought this was at least worth discussing. Sports Illustrated pitched this idea of, hey, Stephen Hauschka got cut by the Buffalo Bills. It is apparently the year of reunions in Seattle, bringing back a bunch of former players. Why not bring in Hauschka to compete with Jason Myers? And if you look at the stats, it's not that different. A little bit better on extra points for Hauschka this past year. Myers better on field goals. It's pretty close. The biggest problem, though, is that you're almost out of time. Like, if you're the Seattle Seahawks, by the time Hauschka clears all the testing protocols, you're past roster cuts more or less. So you would have already had to make up your mind. So I think for Seattle, just because of the unusual timing this year, it makes more sense to roll with Jason Myers, but to at least monitor what's going on with Hauschka. If Myers starts to struggle, maybe you could see a scenario in which Seattle turns to another old player to help out at the kicker spot. Now, roster cuts are coming, and that is why we're going to do another final Seahawks roster projection, practice squad included. Stay tuned for that video coming out on Wednesday. So if you want to know the second that video comes out, all you have to do is subscribe. A couple news notes here on this one. We won't spend as much time on it. Unfortunately for Branden Jackson, there is a very real possibility his NFL career is over. Now, as I'm sure you guys all know, he was placed on IR after being knocked unconscious at a recent Seahawks practice. During the medical follow-up to that, the Seahawks team doctors discovered a spinal issue. It is similar, although not the same, as the neck issues that ended the careers of Cam Chancellor and Cliff Averill. So you're already not going to have Jackson this year. I wasn't sure he was going to make the team anyway, especially after he was cut and then brought back. But it is at least concerning for Jackson. I don't know what his NFL career holds. That's super disappointing for the player and, of course, the team as well. Although it is certainly better the Seahawks doctors found this now as opposed to not finding it out and it caused problems in the future. Now, there were some minor roster moves here for the Seattle Seahawks. Lance Lenior has been added, signed very late in this offseason. Seattle, in a corresponding move, waived injured UDFA back Patrick Carr. Seattle has battled some minor bumps and bruises that have kept players out of camp at the wide receiver spot. I do not anticipate Lenior making the roster this year. There's too much depth. There are too many better players who are more established within this organization for him to find his way to be wide receiver 6 or wide receiver 7, especially since he didn't really play last year as a former member of the Dallas Cowboys. However, his addition at this stage in the offseason could bode well for him being a potential practice squad addition in terms of what his role would be. I say slot receiver for the Seattle Seahawks.